In this video, I'm doing an interview with Matt Cohn-Geier. Thank you for joining us. Please like and subscribe. Hope you enjoy. Please let me know what you like to see in the commentary. Welcome to Matt by way of introduction. This is a picture of us from the Los Angeles Open recently, about a month ago. We were doing commentary together, and people that are familiar with backgammon know Matt, but for those that are not, he's one of the best players in the world for over a decade. He's been a backgammon giant since 2009. He's won many big tournaments, including the Illinois Masters and the Las Vegas Super Jackpot in 2009. In 2010, the Minnesota Open and Masters Jackpot. He was on the team of World versus Denmark in the inaugural event in 2010. Won the Las Vegas Open, the Nordic Open, Super Jackpot in 2011, Japan Open, Consolation, and Super Jackpot in 2012, Monte Carlo WBF Cup 2012, Super Jackpots at the Nordic Open and US Open in 2012, runner-up at the Chicago Open, Nevada State Open, and a Super Jackpot, and in the Texas Championship, Dual 2013. Welcome to Matt. It's a pleasure having you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. I got this information from, I believe, the BMAB. Did I miss
it? Looks like it. Well, it looks like it stopped in 2013. That's when they last updated it. But,
I guess.
I won the ABT in 2017. You know, I did some other stuff along the way.
Good. Okay. Well, very good. So we'll take a look at some other stuff a little bit later. So in these interviews, what I'd like to do is get to know a little bit about the player and talk about backgammon, just so that people can learn. I'd like to start, if I may, with some background biographical information. Maybe you can tell us about where you were born, raised, education, and things like that.
Yeah, I was born just outside of Chicago. I started playing chess in high school, and then I went to college in Wisconsin at Madison. And while I was there, I started playing backgammon. Some people showed up to the student union where I was playing chess, and they were playing backgammon, and I just kind of migrated over to starting in the backgammon life.
Yeah, that's how a lot of people do that. I know. Maybe over 10 years ago, I'm in Los Angeles. We tried to start a group at UCLA, and it was really difficult, but I think going through the chess clubs, that's always good.
Yeah, a bunch of backgammon players used to be chess players. I mean, Falafel, Victor, Sander, there's like a million.
Right. So you went to college in Wisconsin, and what'd you do after college?
I moved out to San Francisco and I worked in tech for a couple of years, and I just kind of kept playing more backgammon. And after a couple of years of working in tech, I decided I was just going to become a professional backgammon player.
That's good. It's always good to do something you enjoy.
Yeah. No, it was good. It was nice that I could do something I enjoyed, and also it enabled me to commit more time to backgammon and become better at backgammon, and set my own life and so on.
So what drew you to backgammon when you were first playing chess in college?
It was just, at that time, I think it was just like an interesting game, and I wasn't really much of a gambler back then. I just kind of was interested in it as a hobby intellectually, and kind of along the way I became a degenerate by falling in with the crowd. Turned into a gambler, but it was like a slow conversion.
Slow conversion.
Yeah.
So what did
kind
you
of
do?
Burned out on chess, and
yeah, that can happen.
To play some backgammon, and I think they had mobile apps, where you could just play backgammon on your phone. It was the early days of smartphones, but that was something that that I enjoyed. And yeah.
Was there computer software available at that time when you were starting out?
The latest was GNU. I didn't know about it for about, I don't know, 6 months or so. Like I kind of just played some random software on, the App Store or whatever, and it wasn't very good. But then I somehow migrated to Jellyfish and then found GNU. And Extreme Gammon hadn't been released yet, but they released it like a couple years later, I think. Yeah, I learned a lot from playing with GNU.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you what have you found as the best ways you've learned and improved yourself?
Well, I have multiple approaches. When I was starting out, I did just about anything I could. I just spent so many hours, as many hours as I could, playing backgammon, studying backgammon, changing around the position, playing out positions, reading books, writing stuff down. I don't know. These days I kind of have like a kind of like two-pronged approach where I do a lot of work away from the board, and then at the board I don't necessarily try to do the same thing I did away from the board. I just try to kind of use my best judgment, but doing work away from the board helps me to improve that judgment.
When you say away from the board, do you mean on the computer?
Yeah. I mean, like not in a money game or a tournament.
Yeah.
Like I might like work out things with the pencil and paper or do some math or whatever, but like I try not to do that when I'm actually playing, because it's
right.
Takes a long time and it's likely to just confuse me. So I don't typically do very much math when I'm actually sitting down. I don't try to like work out match equity or anything like that. And yeah, I found that what I do, I like take positions where I made like large blunders, and then I like write down my thoughts, and then I like play them out 5 or 10 times, and then I write down, other things. And doing that, you can just learn a lot, even if you only play the game, 5 or 10 games.
Yeah, that's great. That's a lot of different ways to learn.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of tried to like attack it from as many different angles as I could.
That's good.
Just be kind of like, here's the right structure, and then if you do this, you're kind of like pigeonholed into this. You can only improve so much.
Yeah, a lot of people watching are going to want to learn how to improve. So what would you recommend for people at different levels, like maybe a beginner level trying to improve, an intermediate or an advanced? What do you suggest for the different levels on how to improve?
Well, I mean, you could start out reading, a book or two if that suits you. I would say pretty much anyone who like really wants to improve should at least look at a computer program and like see what the right move is, or what mistakes they're making.
Right.
It doesn't necessarily have to be Extreme Gammon. It could be on whatever Backgammon Galaxy or your phone or whatever. But if you're not doing that, it's going to be much harder. And I would also like to play around with the position and kind of see like should I do it in a similar position? Is this always the right idea, or where's the threshold where it changes to something else? Yeah, I would say like for beginners, they just need to understand like the basic concepts. Like, you want to make points, hit blots, and if you can't do those, like escape the checker. And I'd say, even for intermediate and open players and even like strong players, like the vast majority of blunders are like they failed to do one of those things.
Right, right.
They were like, oh, I could make a point, but I'm gonna leave, I'm gonna leave a double shot, so I'm gonna do something else, and that's just like a blunder.
Right. So you were talking about creating variant positions on the computer. Maybe you can tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, sorry,
That's
got
okay.
something going in the background. Um, yeah, what I like to do is kind of like play around with the position and just see like, let's say like for a 5-point holding game, and the other side is ahead in the race. Is there some variant you can make where it's a take or where it goes from a take to a pass? And, usually if the side bearing in only has their 8-point and midpoint, like there's pretty much no variant where it's ever a pass. You'd have to really get creative.
It's when they have a big enough racing lead and maybe only 2 on the midpoint.
Right. Well, if they have a big enough racing lead, then they're getting close to leaving a shot. So your racing equity goes down, but your shot equity goes way up. So if the race is like shot and you have no board somehow, that could somehow be like a pass, but it's very hard to actually come up with it. Whereas if they have, the midpoint, the 8 and the 7-point, then it can be a pass. Usually around 20 pips is like where it starts to break even at a take or a pass.
You have more landing spots.
Yeah, just one additional landing spot that's gaps is pretty substantial.
Yeah, there's a good book. Did you see Stick Rice's book about holding game guru?
I did. I read it.
Yeah, so it goes through all those positions.
Uh-huh.
It sounds like a lot of those rollouts of the positions I sent you recently with the back games. What moves it from a take to a pass? You remember those?
Yeah. But yeah, I'd say basically the general concept is just like, okay, so I found this class of positions and now I'm playing around with it, and like nothing I can do for the most part is going to move the needle. So it's just always going to be a take.
Right.
Or the alternative is, okay, I found where the needle moves. It's like at the 20 pip mark. Now, if it's one short of that, it's a take. And if it's one beyond that, it's a pass, And if it's 10 beyond that, it's like a massive pass,
Yeah.
So you don't have to, if you can just remember like those 2 positions, you can remember like an entire class of, backgammon middle games, right?
Right.
Like, you don't have to remember like, 3 million positions.
Just a few reference positions.
Right.
Yeah. So that's good. So how many hours do you spend playing or studying backgammon during a given week nowadays?
It varies a lot. When I was like very, very serious and I was feeling it and spending a lot of time, maybe it would be like, I'd spend like 16 hours a day. But like, on the other hand, if I'm just not feeling it that day, maybe it's like 0, So it's hard to say. I mean, I guess on average, maybe it's like 20 hours a week, but it's not so clear.
It's a lot easier when you don't have, a 9-to-5 job.
Yeah. It's I definitely when I quit my job to start focusing on backgammon, that really helped me improve at the game. And when I met Falafel, it was still kind of like early in my career. I hadn't really played any tournaments or whatever, and I said I mentioned to him like these like top giants who were like supposed to be like good players, and he basically said they can't be good players. Those guys all have jobs. Like,
Yeah, it's like
how
me.
good
I have
can you
a
be?
regular job and I
Yeah,
have two kids at home. Like I don't get sleep.
yeah,
You don't have any of that, right?
right. No, but it's like, how good can you be if you're spending 40 hours a week or more doing something else,
Yeah,
It's hard.
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
So nowadays you're in the Bay Area.
I'm kind of traveling these days.
You're
So
traveling.
yeah, I'm on the road.
Yeah, I saw you at the recent tournament in Los Angeles, so that was nice.
Yeah. That was a good one.
You're
It was nice.
traveling for pleasure or to play tournaments or a little both.
A little both, I guess. I'm just back to my nomadic roots.
Yeah, well, it's
Yeah,
nice. You can kind of do what you want.
yeah. No, it's good. We get to, play some backgammon and visit some places.
Yeah, that
I'll
was
be
actually
in
one.
I'll
Yeah,
be
one
in
of the things.
in a week or so.
You're going where?
Monte Carlo.
Oh yeah, that's always a good one. I was actually going to ask you, what tournaments have you been to that you enjoy going to? Because people like to hear about that.
Yeah, there's been a few, but I've been kind of out of the tournament scene for a few years.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I took a fairly significant step back from backgammon like many years ago, and then since then there was the pandemic, and I didn't really play until like this past year, basically.
yeah,
I started playing a lot more in the past year.
yeah. The
Uh,
pandemic changed a lot. People are playing online all the time.
yeah, I would say my favorite US tournament is probably San Antonio in
Yeah,
Texas. I think they do a great job there, and a lot of players, a lot of good action, big tournament. Um, Abroad, I haven't been to Cyprus in many years, but I'm thinking about going back there. And I don't really know too much what the tournament scene is like abroad, because
right.
I just really haven't been traveling out of the country in a long time.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, Monte Carlo has been turned over from Patty Rubin to Backgammon Galaxy now, and it's Mark Olson's tournament. So
yeah.
yeah, it should be good. I'm excited to go there, and looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a good tournament.
Yeah, I've been in contact recently with Bill Riles, who runs the San Antonio tournament, and that's always a great tournament. And he does a great job with the streaming, which he collaborates with Galaxy
Yeah,
at Monte Carlo. So
yeah,
that's
he's also
really good.
there. He's also going to be doing it in Monte Carlo too.
Yeah, and he said they have some new features that they're going to be doing there. So I'm excited to see that. He does a
Cool.
really good job. They have all sorts of streaming, multiple streams at the same time. So when one match is over, you can go to the other one. And I think I've seen you on some of the chats, like at the Las Vegas one recently. Yeah, I
Yeah,
enjoy that.
no, their streams are excellent. Yeah, you can often find me either playing or counting live or commenting on the internet. So,
Yeah, you enjoy commentating?
yeah, it's good. I think I'm pretty good at it. It's harder than it looks, because you got to talk about backgammon, and you can't really have a lot of dead air. So you don't it's not enough to just be like a good player, but you also have to be quick on your feet talking wise, but then you also have to be decent enough to understand what is going on in the position.
Right, right.
So, you know, it's a complicated mix. I Yeah, I enjoy it. It's sometimes I think I'm pretty fast with you know how I think about things, and so I can kind of keep up with the pace of people playing, and sometimes commentators have a hard time with that.
Yeah, that was my first time officially doing a commentary, and I actually enjoyed it with you. And there were a lot of great players.
Mhm.
I think people can learn a lot about that. And since then, I don't know if you've seen, I've been doing some other commentary videos on some other matches. I'm happy to have you join me at some point in some matches if you like.
Yeah, yeah. I always enjoy matches that have commentary more than just
Yeah,
they're bored and they're just kind of playing.
that's what the feedback has been. A lot of the people, I think that's probably the number one thing people have said in terms of watching backgammon matches online. They enjoy it much better when there's a commentary as opposed to just a silent stream or hearing the players.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what would you say you enjoy the most about playing backgammon?
Oh, I like the game, it's a really good game. It's super interesting and complex, and it's a really, really simple rule set. Like you can learn it in an afternoon, you can teach it to kids. But like then it's just like actually a really hard to actually come to a solution of anything. You
Yeah,
could spend a lifetime studying even the simplest positions and really have like no idea what's going on. So I really like the game. I think it's very interesting from an intellectual point of view. I think it's a great gambling game, even though that seems to be less popular these days.
yeah.
Uh, I still really enjoy, gambling on the game, and yeah, it's a fun game. But
Easy to learn.
for its intellectual pursuits just as much as well.
Right. They say easy to learn and hard to master.
Yeah, I mean, I think you get a sense of like intuition about what's kind of likely, and you kind of there's like math underlying the backgammon thing, but then you kind of start to like see that these non-deterministic sequences are something that you just kind of have to use your feeling, but you can also like improve your feeling, right? So maybe it helps you even in to just approach situations where there's uncertainty in other aspects of life also, like people people don't really understand so much what it means to be like 95% or something.
Right.
They're like if it's you know if it's only 2% that a plane crashes, that's pretty big.
Yeah. Right, right, right. So yeah, that actually well, touches on a topic I was going to ask you. What can people learn from playing backgammon in other aspects of their life? And probability, risk versus reward.
Yeah, I mean, I think those things are great. You can certainly learn to like analyze decisions and make better decisions just from kind of practicing decision making in other aspects. It doesn't necessarily have to be backgammon, but like backgammon is a good way to do it. Like it's fun, and it
Right.
gives you these insights into just because something is 55% to happen doesn't mean it's going to happen. Like
Right.
so many beginners think that like when they leave a double shot, like they're like trying to get hit or something, but like most of the time, half the time you just get missed.
Right.
And that's kind of like how you start to you get the first kind of understandings of how like statistics work.
Right.
And then as you go from there and like start to improve, maybe you start to see it in other aspects of your life as well. But people are in general just not very good with like understanding statistics. They're
Yeah,
like,
it's a good way to learn.
yeah, they kind of understand, 50% and like 100%, but like anything in the middle is
Right, right. I play with my son who's 7 years old. Did you see him when you were out in LA? He was with me for a little
yeah,
bit.
yeah.
Yeah,
I think
so
I
we
briefly.
play. It
Mhm.
teaches them discipline. I think you can learn a lot
Yeah,
from that. No, neither of us is old enough to know how it was when they were playing in the 70s. Backgammon was really big. Now
right,
it's not quite the same. A lot of people are playing poker.
right.
Yeah.
It's had its ups and downs throughout the years. It's never been quite as big as it was in the 70s, but it has had some, surges of popularity throughout.
Yeah.
But recently, it's not like as big as it was.
What do you think can be done to make it a little bit bigger?
I mean, I think there probably needs to be like more money involved. Um,
Yeah.
from sponsors or whomever, like in the 70s, there were all these people, just wealthy people playing the game, Hugh Hefner, Lucille Ball, Prince Alexis, like they all just wanted to play this game. And it doesn't have to necessarily be like one wealthy person. It could be like a company, like in the mid 2000s. They had this tournament with $1 million prize pool in the Bahamas, the
Oh, I heard
party.
about that. Yeah.
So that was like a huge thing, right? Like we don't have anything like that right now, but it doesn't. That wasn't 60 years ago. That was like 10 years ago. So
Was that sponsored by somebody?
yeah, it was sponsored by Gammon. And
Oh,
Gammon was an affiliate of Party Poker.
okay.
Um, after the legislation in the U.S. that pretty much kind of killed off the Gammon site, and
Right.
but there are other people who could sponsor things, maybe DraftKings or whatever. Yeah, I don't know if they broke even or lost money or made money. It was I think they filled up 128 bracket at 10,000 apiece. So,
Party gammon.
yeah,
Wow.
they had a lot of satellites. They were running satellites for like a year or something.
Now a lot of people are playing online. There's some big sites like Backgammon Galaxy and Backgammon Studios Heroes. Used to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
Grid Gammon.
I think those are all great. I think online sites and getting outreach to people online is a really good start of a way to like kind of build up a community. Um, people. There's millions of people who play. They just download a backgammon app called
Right.
Backgammon on the App Store, right? And like nobody even knows like who's maintaining it or what,
Yeah.
Uh, so there's plenty of people who are interested in backgammon. Yeah, I just think they need to get some sort of like a sponsorship to then kind of
It's a good
build.
idea. I've heard that from others too.
Yeah,
Yeah. So you've been playing for some time now. I know you had some interesting stories. I always like to discuss interesting stories. You said you knew Falafel when he was alive. He was the great backgammon player from Israel who passed away a few years ago. Um, you have some stories about that?
Falafel was great. I mean, I love the guy, and he was super interesting. We um where do I even start? We
Where did you meet him? Let's start with that.
I met him in Vegas, but we didn't really talk much until New York. So I talked to him in New York in 2009. I played him a match also at the tournament. It was like, I had only been playing backgammon for a couple of years at that point.
Yeah.
I had already gotten pretty decent I wasn't like, a superstar, but I was like relatively strong. Maybe my PR was like 4.5 or something.
I remember he used to call you MCG Mad Crazy Genius or something to that effect.
He used to call me genius.
Genius.
Yeah, yeah. And he, yeah, he influenced me to, both, as I said, like to just become a professional backgammon player. And then I started living with him in 2011. He wanted to I guess we had already been talking throughout the years and playing backgammon together. We played in the Denmark versus the world event you mentioned, and
Yeah.
we would just constantly be talking and betting on positions and discussing backgammon, and he had some he kind of started in a different era than I did, so he had more of this like prop background.
Yeah.
And it was good to like kind of get a different style than I had been used to. And so yeah, after a couple of years he wanted to move to Las Vegas and like wanted to like start playing poker and discuss backgammon, and so I started living with him for about a year, and we would just like constantly be playing, where he'd where we started getting into poker for a little bit, but I wasn't as heavy into it until later. And yeah, I think that really like helped my development as well. Just having a world-class player that I could be constantly playing with every day, talking about positions with, arguing back and forth.
Yeah.
But he was he was a character, like there's not a whole lot of people who are in any sort of similar way. I don't know who I would compare him to.
Right, right. There was the story about the weight.
Yeah. We I'm pretty skinny, and I was even skinnier back then. And he's always been a pretty heavy guy, and we kind of came up with this idea of what could the two of us cross weights within a year, and what would the odds be, and would anyone bet against us?
Do you remember the difference between your weights at the start?
I was 138 and he was 308.
Oh my goodness.
There was a 170-pound difference, and I weighed less than 140. So it was more than two of me.
Right.
We kind of shopped it around to a few different people, and nobody seemed that interested in the beginning, and then one person took us on it.
And then you actually did it, right?
Yeah. We just got Hanson.
I feel like it's easier to gain weight than lose weight.
No, it's much easier to lose weight than to gain weight. I mean, they're both difficult, but you have like a set maximum on how much you can gain, whereas you can lose a lot of weight. I gained 40 pounds in 10 months, and he lost 130. So we crossed at 178 10 months later. Yeah.
10 months?
Yeah, 10 months. We had
that's a lot.
Yeah. We had been like targeting 180. So we were 2 pounds. He had to get 2 pounds beyond that.
Well, that's good. I know he got his name Falafel because he used to love eating falafel.
Yeah, he graduated from college with 2 degrees actually. But then, unlike most people who like go out and get a job after that, he just decided he'd rather be homeless on the streets of New York, and he was playing chess and started playing backgammon for like a penny a point or whatever.
Yeah.
And he'd always eat the cheapest thing around, which was falafel. So people
Yeah.
started calling him falafel. Then he got really good at backgammon and started winning all the money. So then Phil Locke started calling him Lobster. And now he eats lobster. So
Yeah. That's funny. Yeah, I've met him. He was great. He was great for the game. Great person. I saw, I believe there was a video, Falafel's game or something on YouTube.
yeah,
That was a good one.
yeah. I remember that one. That was a good one. I think that had already been developed even when I met him. But he's
Oh, okay.
yeah, he's a good guy.
Good. Yeah. I know a lot of people have great stories about him, and we can touch on some other topics. One of the things I had was that the dice distribution file that I had kind of created with some other friends on Facebook, Travis Roberts and David Gallagher. I share that with you, and you've been using that.
Yeah. That's great. I mean, I enjoy that. It shows you XG will show you the dice distribution and what's the highest or lowest equity on the next roll or the next 2-roll sequence. But really what you want to think about a lot of the time is what's the biggest swing, right? What's the biggest difference between 2 plays or something. You don't really want to necessarily just know how much the total equity is, right? You want to
Right.
think about what's the difference. And so that's not built into Extreme. You need this file that you created. And I've been kind of using that. One of the things that Falafel would always do is like look at the next roll and try to find the best rolls and the worst rolls. And it was that was another thing he kind of imprinted upon me was looking at the next roll.
Yeah, that's something you always have to think about. Next roll, the roll after that. And all the data from that file is basically extracted from Extreme Gammon. So Extreme Gammon has that data, but they don't have the user interface to show it.
Right. I mean, all the data is there. You just have to, do some extra steps to figure out what the difference is.
Hopefully in the next version, they'll include it.
Yeah.
I was talking with Phil Simborg about that. It's a little tedious to actually extract the data and copy and paste, but the information's nice.
Yeah. And I mean, it's good. It's a really good way to, study and improve. If you don't understand a position, you could look at the biggest swings, and it can really help you in, other positions as well.
Yeah, I did another video on that, so that's on my channel for people that want to watch that. Now, I guess the last thing was wanted to go through some positions with you because I think that's always very interesting. And the ones I selected were from a recent exhibition that you did with Victor Ashkenazi against Jim Pasco playing Paskogammon. So maybe you can tell people what Paskogammon is.
Paskogammon is basically a prop where one side has the starting position and the other side has this massive back game. So you get involved in a lot of really interesting back game battles, and they're not, since the other side only has the starting position, they don't have like a strong prime in front of you. You don't have you don't immediately go into like a crashed back game where you have no timing, like you get a lot of really interesting, like the other side's like trying to build a prime, but you have like a really well-timed game,
Yeah. It was set up by our friend Jim Pasco. I see him in the online shred all the time, but he's been playing for a very long time. And when he was playing back in the 70s, they used to play back games all the time, and he loves it.
Yeah. I mean, I like back games as well. I like playing them. I like playing against them, and I think they're a really good way to like understand concepts. You don't need so much math to analyze back games. You just have to kind of understand the ideas of the positions, and it really helps you to gain positional understanding into backgammon in general.
Yeah, that's the one probably my favorite thing because they're so complicated, and I'm preparing the book on it, and I talk about some of the things you can learn when you play back games. That you can learn about prime versus prime games, about holding games, because effectively it's a holding game, about baron positions. There's a lot of things you can learn by studying the back games.
Yeah. I mean, there's often a lot of like a million legal plays, but if you kind of understand the position and you understand what your objective is, you can just kind of find what the natural play would look like, right? If you're looking at something else, or you're looking at something that's not relevant to the position, then you're liable to make a mistake.
Yeah. Okay, well, here's the first position. In this, you were playing with Victor at the top, and Jim Pasco was the black checkers at the bottom. And here, white has a 5-4 from the bar. So what are your thoughts on this?
Usually you come out. Usually you only have two. Well, you have three legal plays, but 8-3 is not really a play. So your two plays are, you can come out or you can come down to the 13-8. And if you come down 13-8, you're improving your distribution because the 8-point is stripped, and you would like to have a spare checker on the 8 so that you could like use it to make the 4-point or the 3-point or whatever. But as I said in the beginning, you want to either hit a blot, make a point, or escape a checker. And here you can escape a checker, so you should do that. If you don't, if you don't escape a checker, then either blue can make his 4-point on your head, or he can make his 7-point. And in either case, you're kind of like in danger of being stuck behind a prime. When you're stuck behind a prime, you want to have fewer men back than more men back, because as you get more men back, it just becomes harder and harder to escape.
Yeah, good. So I did the analysis on this. This is the XG. Hopefully it can be seen. Maybe our faces are in the view, but bar 16 is the right play, and bar 21, 13, 8 is a 28 error on plus.
So not a blunder in this case, because 13-8 does improve your distribution a little bit, but it's still not as important as escaping a checker.
Right.
And even though leaving a shot in the outfield, at least you're not. If you get hit in the outfield, you just have 3 men back like you did before, right? So.
Good. Okay. So let's look at the next one. Here it is now. Blue has a 4-3 to play from the 2-4 back game position, but it's only a 12 pip racing disadvantage.
This one is interesting. Yeah. So I think you want to go 21-18 because you want to fight for the outfield, and like you say, it's only a 12 pip racing disadvantage, so you're not really in a back game per se. Like, it's hard to, usually in order to be in a back game, you need to not only have 2 anchors, but then you also need to hit a late shot when the other guy's prime has collapsed.
Right. I call that the critical shot.
Right. And like here imagine what it would take for white to build a prime and then for that prime to collapse. Like, that would take like a million rolls, right? You can just like double six, and it would still not be there. So, and in the meantime, blue would have to move. It just probably wouldn't have a strong board. So he doesn't really have a back game, right? He's not like trying to like have white build a prime in front of him and then get that prime to collapse and then hit a shot after that. He's trying to like prevent white from ever building in prime in the first place. And
He
so I
likes
think,
timing.
yeah, and so I think you want to go 21-18 with the 3, but you don't have a very good 4.
That's right.
You would rather come out from the 23 point, I guess, than
Right,
come out
obviously.
from. But I guess the best play is 21-18 and 7-3, which at least builds your board. He's not so eager to hit you with a 3 because you would have a 3-point board and he'd only have a 2-point board, so you'd actually have him outboarded in an exchange of hits. He'd be more eager to point on you on the 4-point, but that's only 4-2 and double 2 and double ace.
Yeah. Do you remember what Jim played?
I think Jim went 18-14 and 6-3, and the problem with that is that it's kind of disconnecting. You got 4 back guys, right? So you're not escaping a checker, and if you get hit, now you got 5 guys back, and if you can't spring into the outfield immediately, you have no more spares to play with, and so on.
Yeah, these are the ones that's it's kind of tough to trust XG just from the plus analysis. You really have to do a 4-ply rollout or 4-ply huge rollout, which I didn't do on this.
Yeah.
But let's see what it says. It says, yeah, that's what it says. 21-18, 7-3 on plus. 18-11 is close, and there's also the 18-14, 6-3. Here it has 18-15, 7-3 as a blunder, but we'd have to roll that out, and that's not even on plus.
Well, that's probably not play.
I think the important things about these positions is not what it says on XG, but the thought and the reasoning that you explained.
Yeah, and if you look at not just the equity numbers, but also the wins and gammons and so on, you can see that 21-18, 7-3 probably is the best play at double match point, and most likely the reason why it's behind is because it loses more gammons by giving up the anchor.
Right.
Yeah, so that's an interesting idea. I wasn't really too worried about getting gammon, but I can see that giving up the 4-point anchor does get gammon more often. But usually, I'm just, I try so hard to win the game. I never found a game I couldn't win.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's see the next one. This is a cube action. White is on roll. These are all money games. So white is ahead, 18 pips.
I should say though that if it's kind of close like this, it's not really a huge deal. It's just kind of better to understand the concept. It's not like if it's not a blunder, I'm not super unhappy with myself. Here, I think we doubled here, right? It looks like a good game because we're up 18 pips. Even if we don't hit a shot, we just are bearing it against the 4-point, and then we also have 5s and 2s to hit, plus some action against the plot that's left on the 23-point. And you can kind of see from this how it's like not really a back game, right? Blue has to give up something at some point. Here he gave up the 23-point, but if he didn't give up the 23-point, he would have had to give up his.
Yeah, I think he had the 23-point in this game, and then he had to come out.
Yeah.
So you doubled, and I don't remember. I'm sure Jim takes everything, right?
Yeah, but I think this one is an easy take.
This one's a take, yeah.
Yeah, blue has a strong board. White has the open 3-point, and white has 2 points to clear in the outfield. So even though he has the landing spaces, like you could just roll like 6-1 immediately is like a problem. I guess you go 8-1 without leaving a shot, but it's not very good.
Yeah.
5-1, that other kind of stuff.
White has a lot of contact value here. I mean, blue has a lot of contact value.
Yeah, I mean, blue has numerous roles where he can either like hit very soon, in which case, he already has a strong board in place, or, if he hits later in the game, that's fine too, if White manages to clear the 15 and the 12 points and like brings all his guys home, and then he hits a shot while, White is clearing the 8 through 5 points, like, he can also win that way.
Yeah. So when you're looking at cube actions, do you think of it the same way, like you're looking at checker plays? What are all the next rolls? What are the good ones? What are the bad ones? What are the market losers? What are the non-market losers? You think about it that way?
Yeah, I mean, I have some references where like I know like, this is a take, this is a pass. So it's easier kind of to have reference positions for cube action because, there's only two possible actions, right? And so you can kind of group them into like take or pass or double or no double. Whereas, checker plays, there could be, 21 possible dice rolls or whatever. And then you have to, think about how many little plays there are for the dice rolls. It could be like, 3,000 plays on one position.
Yeah.
Typically the holding game where you have you have not only racing chances also because 18 pips is a lot, but it's not anywhere near gin. If blue rolls double six, he'll actually be ahead. And you also have shot chances both now and later, and you don't rate to get gammoned very often, right? Because you have a high anchor, not a low anchor. These are typically just pretty easy takes, and we can double, I think, based on the volatility, and that, like, let's say we hit any fans or we roll a double, like double six or something, or double five, we could not only gain a ton of ground in the race, but also start to clear the position and or attack the blot that's left on the 23 point.
Yeah. There's also the dice distribution feature for doubling decisions as well. That's also useful.
Yeah. I typically don't use that as often, but it is useful if you like don't understand and you're trying to figure it out. I think more I just kind of use it for checker plays, and then on cube action I just kind of know whether this is over the line or under the line.
Yeah. Well, let's see.
I don't really go through all the roles, but I see that we have 3 5s and 2s, and then we also have like double 4s and double 6, and double 3, and all that.
Yeah. So this one turns out to be a strong double and a borderline take. It's 980, so it's almost a pass.
Okay, all right, fair enough. I guess I was underestimating the gammon potential.
Yeah, white wins 15% gammons and blue only 4%. It's a big difference in gammons in these types of games.
Yeah, normally when you're only down 18 pips, you don't really rate to get gammon, but because there's 2 blots out here, and one is already shooting at a double shot, that can really jack up
this one and also this back one.
Right. So we could hit the blot in the outfield, and that could really jack up the gammons. And then if he doesn't, remake it in second anchor, like we could potentially, not close him out, but maybe make a 5-point board with 1 or 2 of them on the bar or something.
Right.
That could become a real problem.
Yeah, good. So let's see the next one. I think there are like 2 more. So this was where Jim was on roll. Do you remember this position?
Yeah, I kind of remember this one.
He was looking to redouble as blue.
I guess we eventually passed.
Pass. I don't know. We'll look at it. but white has a checker on the bar in a really bad position. But blue still has 2 checkers back and only 6s and 4s, which are blocked on that side, so they're kind of good on this side.
Probably in a position where if we had like all 14 checkers on and one guy still on the bar, that would be like a pretty easy take. And probably not even a double if blue still had men back. He does have double 4 and 6-4 to make his 4-point. The problem that we have is that we have 3 guys outside on the 8s. And we have 5-4.
Yeah.
Also, like we could enter with 4-1, which is going to immediately expose the second blot. Or we could just, fan and he closes us out with 3 guys outside, and then we like lose a gammon from there. And we also don't win nearly as many races with the 3 guys outside. 4-2 is also not a great roll in that it doesn't expose a blot right away, but it's destructive to our position.
Right.
Yeah.
So let's see. So this was a redouble and a take on plus, but usually plus underestimates blue's chances in these types of position after the rollout. I think actually, if I remember correctly, he might have waited another roll before doubling you out, but we can go back on the video and check.
Okay. Yeah, it might have been he took another roll and then doubled us out.
All right, and then this is the last position. This is the one you sent me from a back game. Blue has a double 1 with the 1-2 back game. Only 69 pips of timing in terms of a racing difference, which is not enough for a 1-2 back game. And white is on the bar. So what do you do as blue?
This is a good one. This one, I showed it to a few. I made a blunder here, and I showed it to a few top players, and they also blundered the same way as me. So, it's a difficult. It's a difficult position. I kind of figured, well, I've already made the ace point. I'm behind a 6 prime. I'm basically like hopelessly behind, right? I'm just going to crash no matter what I do. Like I don't see any way to like salvage this, so I can just kind of limit the damage and hope to not get gammoned or backgammoned. And so I went 8-4, and I'm like, well, maybe I just want to get more checkers sent back, and I'll also give him a double 2 to enter and crack with. And that turns out to be a pretty sizable blunder.
Let's see. This is just plus. But you did 8-4.
Yeah.
I don't even see it on the list. I think the idea is just
some other very top players. I don't know if I should name names, but we'll just say guys at the
well,
top.
I think Jim would have played 5-3.
Jim would have played 5-3, but most of us mere mortals are just like, well, I don't want to get gammoned or backgammoned, and I can't see how I'm going to win after making the ace point, And if I hadn't made the ace point, I would have played 5-3. If you moved those 2 guys back to like the 7 point, then I would have.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Or even just somewhere else on the board, maybe even like, if they were on the deuce point, you could go 5-3 and 2-1, and then you could just like,
board breaker.
Right. Something like that. I just thought, like, since I've already made the ace point, like, it's really hard to actually time the game. Like, I'm never going to be able to make a prime, right?
Right.
Like I have the ace point and I have at least 4 guys back. So you can't make a prime if you have 6 guys out of play. You only have 9 checkers left.
Right.
um,
Overextended.
right. But I mean, for one thing, 8 to 4 just it doesn't really. You can still get gammoned or backgammoned, since you have 5 guys back, right? Like you're not really saving that many gammons. You usually just backgammons, but your odds of winning go way down. And I guess what Extreme's idea is simply that, you know, if you go 5 to 3 and don't hit the second checker, either by playing, you know, 6 to 4 or 13-12 twice or 8 to 7 or whatever, like then you get hit and you just like fan once and suddenly you have like an okay timed game.
Yeah.
It's not the greatest, like, so at XG, you know, fanning once or twice actually really helps you. And I didn't really kind of see how much it helped you, but it improves your wins by a lot. And what XG will often do, as I found playing out this game, is it'll kind of build up a board with like the ace deuce 3 points, and then it will like somehow try to contain him in the outfield as it like builds the rest of its board, right? So it won't have any guys dead, and it'll kind of like build up the rest of its board in some way by hitting in the outfield. Yeah. So as long as you don't have checkers dead, like, you know, you can still somehow make a game out of it. And I guess the other thing is just that like 8 to 4 doesn't really save that many games, you know. Like you're with 5 guys back, you're just not gonna save that many games.
You're gonna crack.
Yeah, I mean, for sure you're gonna crack, and you know, you're gonna crack down to not just like, you know, the ace deuce 3, but you're gonna crack down to like, you know, now I have guys dead. Yeah. And that's, having guys dead is much worse than just having a board of low points. But also, you know, whether you crack or not, like you're just getting gammoned a lot. You already have 5 guys back. You can't be like, well, I'm just going to give up and, you know, save a gammon, because, you know, you're probably not going to save a gammon.
Yeah, with a 1-2 back game, you want at least 100 pips of timing in terms of a racing deficit.
Yeah. I mean, I would be happy to, you know, if I had a well-timed game, then I'd be happy to make a board-breaking play, and I'd actually have like a pretty good game. You know, even if you move those guys just back to the deuce point, like I say, you go 2-1 and 5 to 3, like blue actually has a pretty reasonable game at that point. It's not great, you know, white side is still better, but it's not like, you know, he's giving up the value of the cube. It's like close to a fake, maybe. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, if you adjust the timing, that's what I tell people. The 3 most important things in a back game are timing, timing, and timing.
For sure.
Yeah. So good. That was the last position. So we'll stop that. And that was great. I really enjoyed talking with you, learning about your background, about backgammon, talking about some positions. Really appreciate your time. Hopefully we can do some more videos, maybe another time on strategy or commentary. Do you have any final thoughts or comments?
Thanks for having me. You know, I enjoyed talking, and yeah, I'd be happy to talk more about strategy or anything else people are interested in, and obviously, you know, if you want to.
All right. Well, thank you again for your time. I hope the viewers enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe and place your comments below. Let me know what you'd like to see in upcoming videos, and we'll see you in the next video.